Let's learn gym equipment vocabulary along with example sentences.
Dumbbells. She lifted the dumbbells with ease, completing her arm workout. Dumbbells are versatile weights used for various strength training exercises. Barbell. The barbell was loaded with heavy plates for her deadlift. He performed bench presses with the barbell to build chest muscles. Smith machine. The Smith machine allows for controlled movements during squats. She used the Smith machine to practice her shoulder presses safely. Treadmill. Running on the treadmill is a great way to improve cardiovascular health. He set the treadmill to an incline for a more challenging workout. Stationary bike. The stationary bike is perfect for high-intensity interval training, HIIT. He cycles on the stationary bike for 30 minutes every morning. Elliptical. The elliptical provides a low-impact workout that's easy on the joints. She prefers the elliptical for its smooth gliding motion. Kettlebells. She swings the kettlebell to strengthen her core and improve balance. Kettlebells are excellent for functional training exercises. Resistance bands. Resistance bands are ideal for adding tension to bodyweight exercises. He uses resistance bands to warm up his muscles before lifting weights. Bench press. She achieved a new personal record on the bench press today. The bench press is a fundamental exercise for building upper body strength. Leg press machine. The leg press machine targets the quadriceps, hamstrings, and glutes. He increased the weight on the leg press machine to challenge his legs. Cable machine. The cable machine allows for a variety of exercises targeting different muscle groups. She used the cable machine to perform tricep pushdowns and lat pulldowns. Squat rack. The squat rack is essential for safely performing heavy squats. He adjusted the safety bars on the squat rack before starting his workout. Exercise mat. The exercise mat provides a comfortable surface for floor exercises and stretches. She brought her exercise mat to the park for an outdoor Pilates session. Battle ropes. Swinging the battle ropes is an intense cardiovascular and strength workout. He includes battle ropes in his circuit training for a full-body challenge. Foam roller. The foam roller helps to release muscle tightness and improve flexibility. She used the foam roller after her workout to prevent soreness. Medicine ball. Throwing the medicine ball against the wall is a great plyometric exercise. He incorporated the medicine ball into his core routine for added resistance. Dip station. Dips on the dip station are excellent for working the triceps and chest. She uses the dip station to perform assisted dips with a resistance band. Pull-up bar. He practiced his pull-ups on the pull-up bar until he could do 10 in a row. The pull-up bar is great for strengthening the upper back and arms. Rowing machine. The rowing machine offers a full-body workout that burns a lot of calories. She enjoys the rowing machine because it simulates rowing on water.
Ever heard someone say it's raining cats and dogs and wondered what on earth they were talking about? Well, you're not alone. Every language has its quirks, and English is no exception. One of these quirks is idioms, phrases that don't mean exactly what they say. They're a colorful, often humorous way of expressing thoughts or feelings that literal language just can't capture. Imagine trying to explain that you're extremely busy to a non-English speaker. You could say, "I'm as busy as a bee," and they'd probably give you a puzzled look. But to an English speaker, the meaning is clear. Idioms might seem baffling at first, but they're a crucial part of everyday conversations. They add spice to our language, making it more vibrant and engaging. So you see, understanding idioms isn't just about learning words. It's about getting a glimpse into the culture and mindset of English speakers. Ready to dive into the world of English idioms? Let's get started. Animals seem to pop up a lot in English idioms. Ever wondered why? Well, animals have been integral to human life for centuries, providing food, labor, and companionship. It's no surprise that they've found their way into our language as metaphors and similes in the form of idioms. Let's dive into the jungle of English idioms and start with the elephant in the room. This idiom refers to an obvious problem or difficult situation that people avoid talking about. Think of how hard it would be to ignore an actual elephant in your living room. Next up is a fish out of water, which is used to describe someone who is in a situation that they are not comfortable with or not used to. Picture a fish gasping for breath on dry land, and you can understand how this idiom came to be. Then we have the bird's eye view. This phrase is used to describe a view from a very high perspective, as if seen by a bird in flight. Birds have the highest vantage point of all animals, so it's no wonder we use this idiom to describe a comprehensive overview. Moving on, we come across, "let the cat out of the bag." This idiom means to reveal a secret. The origins of this phrase are unclear, but it's commonly believed to come from a time when piglets were sold in bags at markets. If someone was deceitful and put a cat in the bag instead, the secret would be out once the cat was let out. Other animal idioms include barking up the wrong tree, making a false assumption or mistake. The world is your oyster. You have the freedom and ability to do anything you want. And a leopard can't change its spots. People cannot change their fundamental nature. So, as you can see, animals play a significant role in English idioms, bringing color, humor, and vivid imagery to our language. They help us express complex ideas and emotions in a simple, relatable way. So next time someone talks about killing two birds with one stone, you'll know they're not planning a bird massacre. Ever noticed how the weather seems to play a big part in English idioms? Weather, with its capricious changes and powerful effects, has always been a rich source of metaphors in English. Let's explore 10 popular English idioms that involve weather. First off, we have "it's raining cats and dogs," which simply means it's raining very heavily. The origin of this phrase is a bit murky, but it certainly paints a vivid picture of a downpour. Next up is "break the ice." While it might conjure images of polar explorers, it actually refers to the act of starting a conversation or activity, especially in a tense or awkward situation. Think of it as breaking through a frozen surface to reach the warmer waters of communication underneath. Then there's "under the weather." If you're feeling under the weather, you're not feeling well. It's as if you're weighed down by dark clouds of illness. We also have a storm in a teacup. This phrase describes a situation where people are making a big fuss about a minor issue. The storm represents the fuss, and the teacup, the small scale of the problem. "Save for a rainy day" is another common weather idiom. It encourages us to save money or resources for tough times ahead, much like storing food for a period of bad weather. When you're on cloud nine, you're extremely happy, as if floating high above earthly concerns on a fluffy cloud. If something goes down a storm, it's very successful or well received, like the nourishing rain that helps crops grow. Chase rainbows refers to pursuing unrealistic or unattainable goals, just as it's impossible to catch a rainbow. Steal someone's thunder means to take the credit for someone else's work. It's like stealing the thunder that rightfully belongs to the lightning. Finally, "every cloud has a silver lining" is a popular idiom, meaning that every bad situation has a positive aspect. So the next time you hear "every cloud has a silver lining," remember it's not about actual clouds. English speakers seem to have a lot of idioms related to food. Hungry for knowledge? Let's start with "the apple of my eye." This phrase doesn't mean someone is trying to stick an apple in your eye. It's actually a term of endearment, meaning someone who is cherished more than others. For example, "my youngest daughter is the apple of my eye." Next up, "take with a grain of salt." This idiom has nothing to do with your dietary sodium intake. Instead, it means to be skeptical about something or not take it too seriously. You might hear it used like this: I'd take his advice with a grain of salt. He's known for exaggerating. Now, spill the beans. No, we're not talking about clumsily knocking over a can of beans. This phrase means to reveal a secret or confidential information. Like when you accidentally tell your friend about the surprise party, you've just spilled the beans. Moving on to a piece of cake. This isn't about sharing dessert, it's a way of saying that something is easy or simple to do. Like when your friend asks if you can help them move furniture and you respond, "Sure, it'll be a piece of cake." Here's a fun one: butter someone up. No, you don't need to reach for the dairy. This means to flatter or praise someone, usually to gain a favor. For instance, he's just trying to butter you up so you'll lend him your car. Next, cry over spilled milk. This isn't about being upset over a minor mess. It's about expressing regret or frustration over something that has already happened and cannot be changed. There's no use crying over spilled milk. We'll just try again next time. Finally, you can't have your cake and eat it too. This isn't a cruel joke about dessert deprivation. It's a way of saying that you can't have it both ways or enjoy two incompatible things at the same time. So don't be surprised if someone tells you you can't have your cake and eat it too. They're not necessarily talking about dessert. Body parts often make an appearance in English idioms. Let's put our best foot forward and explore some of them. Kicking off our list is the saying, cost an arm and a leg, which means something is very expensive. Picture a purchase so pricey that you'd have to give up your own limbs to afford it. Next up, we have get cold feet. No, this doesn't mean you've forgotten your socks in the winter. It is used to express nervousness or fear, usually just before a big event. So if you're about to give a speech and you're feeling anxious, you've got cold feet. Now, if someone tells you they're going to pull your leg, don't worry, they're not planning a prank involving your limbs. They're simply teasing you or joking around. So when your friend tells you that they won the lottery, only to laugh and say they were just pulling your leg, they're using this idiom. Moving on, if someone asks you to give them a hand, they're not requesting a high five, they're asking for your help. So if your neighbor asks you to give them a hand with their garden, they're asking you to assist them, not donate your appendage. Then there's keep your chin up, which is a way of telling someone to stay positive and not let their spirits drop. So if someone tells you to keep your chin up during a tough time, they're encouraging you to remain optimistic. Have a heart is another idiom, used to appeal to someone's compassion. If you're pleading with your boss for an extra day off, you might ask them to have a heart. Another idiom is break a leg, which, despite its violent imagery, is actually a way to wish someone good luck, especially before a performance. Finally, if someone says they'd give their right arm for something, they're not scheduling an appointment with the surgeon. They're simply expressing their intense desire for that thing. Now, you won't be taken aback if someone tells you they'd give their right arm for something. They're not planning any drastic surgeries. We've covered a lot of ground today, haven't we? Indeed, we embarked on a fascinating journey through the language landscape, exploring 100 basic English idioms. These idioms, as we've discovered, are more than just combinations of words. They're a critical part of the English language, adding color, depth, and flavor to our conversations. We kicked things off by delving into the wild and wonderful world of animal idioms. From letting the cat out of the bag to being a dark horse, we saw how animals have found their way into English idioms in the most imaginative ways. Then we turned our gaze to the skies, exploring idioms inspired by the weather. We learned that raining cats and dogs doesn't mean a downpour of pets, and that being on cloud 9 has nothing to do with actual clouds. These idioms, although seemingly bizarre, are used to express strong emotions or describe extreme situations. Next, we ventured into the delicious realm of food idioms. We found out that spilling the beans doesn't involve any actual beans, and taking something with a pinch of salt doesn't require any seasoning. These food-inspired idioms, we realized, are used to convey a variety of meanings, from revealing secrets to expressing skepticism. Our journey then took us to the human body, where we explored idioms related to various body parts. We discovered that having cold feet doesn't mean your feet are literally cold, and keeping an ear to the ground doesn't mean pressing your ear against the floor. These idioms, we learned, are often used to express feelings, perceptions, or actions. Throughout this exploration, it became clear that understanding idioms is crucial for English language learners. Idioms can be tricky because their meanings often don't align with the literal definitions of the words they contain. However, with practice and exposure, you can master them, enriching your English language skills and allowing you to communicate more effectively and naturally. Remember, idioms are an integral part of the English language, and they're used regularly in everyday conversations, in the media, and in literature. So, don't shy away from them, embrace them, learn them, use them. The more you do, the more comfortable you'll become with them. To wrap up, we've journeyed through the animal kingdom, danced in the rain, savored delicious foods, and explored the human body, all through the lens of English idioms. These colorful expressions, while sometimes puzzling, are a key part of the English language, so keep this journey going. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep practicing. Learning idioms can be a piece of cake if you take it one at a time, so keep practicing, and soon you'll be using them like a native speaker.
Have you ever wondered about the origins of popular English idioms? Idioms, those quirky phrases we use in everyday conversation, actually hold a treasure trove of cultural history and linguistic nuance. They're a key aspect of language that gives it color and depth. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly is an idiom? Well, at its core, an idiom is a phrase or expression that carries a figurative meaning. That's right, its actual definition is often quite different from the literal interpretation of the words it contains. For example, when someone says, "It's raining cats and dogs," they're not actually suggesting that household pets are falling from the sky. The beauty of idioms is that they can encapsulate complex ideas or emotions in a simple, memorable way. They're a testament to the creativity of language, reflecting the humor, wisdom, and shared experiences of different cultures. In this video, we're going to embark on an exciting journey through the world of English idioms. We'll explore phrases that range from food-related idioms like "bring home the bacon" and "as useful as a chocolate teapot," to weather idioms such as "rain or shine" and "when it rains, it pours." We'll delve into animal idioms including "put the cat among the pigeons" and "herding cats," and we'll also touch on idioms about news and information like "bad news travel fast" and "front page news." We'll also dive into cultural idioms, phrases that have been shaped by societal norms and historic events. Ever heard of a Mexican standoff or wondered why Rome wasn't built in a day? We'll unravel these and more. Lastly, we'll round off with a mix of miscellaneous idioms, from "lose one's marbles" to "walking on eggshells" and "throw caution to the wind." So, are you ready to uncover the hidden meanings behind these intriguing phrases and maybe even add a few to your vocabulary? Stay tuned as we delve into the world of English idioms. Ever heard of phrases like "bring home the bacon" or "use your noodle"? These are what we call food idioms. They're a tasty part of the English language that adds flavor to our conversations. Let's dig in, shall we? First up, "bring home the bacon." Despite its culinary imagery, this idiom has nothing to do with cooking. It actually means to earn money, particularly for one's family. For instance, you might say, "John works long hours to bring home the bacon." Next, "use your noodle." In this context, the word noodle is a playful term for the brain. So if you're told to use your noodle, it simply means to think smartly or logically. You might hear it in a sentence like, "I'm sure you can figure out this puzzle if you just use your noodle." Now let's talk about the big cheese. This idiom refers to an important person or a leader. For example, the CEO is the big cheese in any company. Ever heard someone being called a couch potato? It's an idiom used to describe a person who spends a lot of time watching television or doing nothing. Like, "My brother is such a couch potato, he's always in front of the TV." Next up, tough cookie. It refers to a person who is strong-willed and independent. In a sentence, "she faced many challenges, but she's a tough cookie." Let's look at eat like a horse and eat like a bird. If someone eats like a horse, they eat a lot. But if they eat like a bird, they eat very little. Moving on, the apple of one's eye is a phrase used to describe someone that is cherished above all others. Like, "her grandson is the apple of her eye." Apples and oranges is used to describe two things that are fundamentally different. For instance, comparing painting and photography is like comparing apples and oranges. Lastly, sweet tooth. If you have a sweet tooth, it means you love sweet foods. Like, "she has a sweet tooth, so she always has dessert." Food idioms are quite popular in English, aren't they? Weather affects our daily lives, but did you know it also influences our language? Just as the weather is ever-changing and full of surprises, so is our use of idioms in English. Let's dive into some weather-related idioms and see how they make our language more colorful and expressive. First up, we have "rain or shine." This idiom is used to express the idea of something happening no matter what the circumstances are. For instance, you might say, "the mail gets delivered, rain or shine," meaning that the mail will be delivered regardless of the weather. Next up is "right as rain." Despite what the phrase might suggest, it has nothing to do with accurate weather forecasting. Instead, it's used to describe someone or something that is in perfect condition or exactly right. If someone says, "After a good night's sleep, I felt right as rain," they mean they felt completely restored or healthy. Moving along, we have to rain on someone's parade. This idiom doesn't involve actual rain or parades. Instead, it's used when someone spoils another person's plans or dampens their enthusiasm. For example, if someone is excited about their new business idea and you point out all the potential problems, you might be accused of raining on their parade. When it rains, it pours is another weather idiom. It suggests that when one thing goes wrong, many other things often go wrong at the same time. It's comparable to saying misfortunes always come in bundles. Lastly, we have save for a rainy day. This idiom is about being prepared. It means to save something, especially money, for a time when it might be needed unexpectedly. For example, she doesn't spend all her earnings and saves some for a rainy day. Weather idioms often reflect the unpredictability and impact of weather on our lives. They add a touch of charm and whimsy to our everyday language, making the mundane a little bit more interesting. Animals have a prominent place in English idioms. Ever heard the cat among the pigeons? This idiom is used when someone creates a stir or causes an uproar by doing or saying something unexpected or controversial. For instance, imagine a situation in which a quiet employee suddenly quits their job and starts their own company. That would surely put the cat among the pigeons in the office. Next, let's consider the phrase "like herding cats." This idiom paints a vivid picture of the challenging task of trying to control or organize a group of people who each have their own ideas and do not want to follow instructions. Imagine trying to gather all your friends who are spread across the city for a surprise party. It would feel like herding cats. Bell the cat is an idiom originating from Aesop's fables. It is used to suggest an impossible or dangerous task. For example, if someone proposes a risky plan without volunteering to execute it, you might ask them, "Who will bell the cat?" Moving on to aquatic life, a big fish refers to an important or influential person. In a company, the CEO is undoubtedly a big fish. On the other hand, if you have bigger fish to fry, it means you have more important things to do. For instance, if you're busy preparing for a major presentation, you might say you have bigger fish to fry than to attend a casual lunch meeting. Birds of a feather flock together is a popular idiom used to express that people with similar interests, ideas, or characteristics will often choose to spend time together. The idiom "like a dog with two tails" is used to describe someone who is extremely happy or excited. Imagine how excited a dog would be if it had two tails to wag. Lastly, the term underdog refers to a person or group expected to lose in a contest or conflict. This idiom is often used in sports when a less favored team triumphs over a stronger opponent. Animals, with their unique behaviors and characteristics, add color to our language. Information is power, and it's reflected in idioms too. Let's dive into some idioms about news and information. First up, we have "bad news travels fast." This idiom suggests that people are quicker to share unfavorable news or gossip. It's like when you hear about a celebrity scandal before you even have time to sip your morning coffee. Next is "to be old news." This is used when something isn't considered newsworthy or surprising anymore. For instance, if someone tells you that they've just discovered this amazing show called Friends, you might say, "That's old news. The show ended over 20 years ago." Then there's front page news, which refers to something significant or sensational enough to make the headlines. If you did something extraordinary, like inventing a device to communicate with animals, you'd be front page news. Now, the bearer of bad news is someone who delivers unpleasant information. It's like when your boss walks in and says, "I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we have to work this weekend." Not exactly the kind of news you want to hear, right? Lastly, we have "straight from the horse's mouth." This idiom means getting information directly from the most reliable source. If you hear about a company's new product directly from its CEO, that's getting it straight from the horse's mouth. It's often the most accurate, unaltered news you can get. These idioms show how we perceive and share information. They reflect our tendency to spread bad news quickly, how quickly today's news becomes yesterday's, the impact of significant events, the discomfort of delivering bad news, and the value of getting information from a reliable source. And just like that, You're now in the know about these information-related idioms. Be sure to use them the next time you're discussing news or sharing information. Did you know some idioms have roots in different cultures? Let's dive into some idioms that originate from various cultures and explore their meanings and usage. First on our list is a Mexican standoff. This idiom describes a situation where no one can proceed or retreat without exposing themselves to danger. Imagine three cowboys in a duel, each waiting for the other to make the first move. An example might be, the negotiation ended in a Mexican standoff, with neither party willing to back down. Next, we have talk for England. This British idiom is used to describe someone who talks a lot. If your friend can't stop chattering about their recent vacation, you might say, she could talk for England about her trip to Paris. Then there's the classic Rome wasn't built in a day. This idiom reminds us that important work takes time. If your coworker is getting impatient with a project, you could reassure them by saying, don't worry, Rome wasn't built in a day. Our next idiom, the world is your oyster, encourages an optimistic outlook. It suggests that you have the freedom and ability to do whatever you want. If your friend is feeling down about a missed opportunity, you could cheer them up by saying, don't worry, the world is your oyster, there will be other chances. Finally, we have to paint the town red. This lively idiom means to go out and enjoy oneself flamboyantly. If you're planning a fun night out with friends, you might say, we're going to paint the town red tonight. Cultural idioms like these not only add color and flavor to our conversations, but they also reflect the rich tapestry of cultures that contribute to the English language. So the next time you use one of these idioms, remember the cultural heritage it carries. Cultural idioms enrich our language and make it more diverse. There are many more idioms that don't fit into specific categories, but are equally fascinating. Let's start with the idiom, hit the nail on the head. This phrase means to be exactly right about something. For instance, if you correctly guess the reason your friend is upset, you've hit the nail on the head. Moving on, we have bite off more than one can chew. This idiom is used when someone has taken on more responsibilities than they can handle. Imagine a student who signed up for too many classes and now struggles to keep up. They've bitten off more than they can chew. Next up is cry over spilled milk. This phrase is used to express the pointless frustration over something that has already happened and cannot be changed. If your friend is upset about losing a game last week, you might tell them, there's no use crying over spilled milk. We also have break the ice. This means to initiate conversation or ease tension in a social situation. You might tell a joke at the start of a meeting to break the ice and make everyone feel more comfortable. Another interesting idiom is bury the hatchet. This means to end a quarrel or conflict and become friendly. Two nations might decide to bury the hatchet and sign a peace treaty. The idiom to blow one's own trumpet means to boast about one's own abilities or achievements. If someone is always talking about their accolades, they're blowing their own trumpet. To go against the grain means to act contrary to the norm or against one's own natural inclination. A vegetarian in a family of meat eaters is going against the grain. Lastly, we have oddball, which refers to a person who behaves unusually or a thing that is out of the ordinary. And a go-getter is an active, ambitious person who strives hard to achieve their goals. Idioms are a testament to the richness and creativity of the English language. English idioms are a fun and interesting part of the language. We've navigated a fascinating journey through 100 English idioms, each one a colorful phrase that adds depth and delight to our conversations. They breathe life into our language, painting vivid images in the listener's mind. From food idioms like bring home the bacon or the icing on the cake that fill our language with delicious imagery, to weather idioms like when it rains it pours and save for a rainy day, which bring a sense of the natural world into our dialogues. Each idiom is a delightful nugget of cultural wisdom, encapsulating centuries of collective experience in just a few words. We've explored the wild kingdom of animal idioms where herding cats and belling the cat teach us about the challenges and strategies of life. Idioms about news and information, like front page news or bad news travels fast, provide us with a unique perspective on how we communicate and perceive our world. We've also delved into cultural idioms. Phrases like Rome wasn't built in a day and the world is your oyster offer us a window into different cultures, illuminating their values and philosophies. In our miscellaneous section, we covered a range of idioms that can't be neatly categorized. These include to go down the rabbit hole, to blow one's own trumpet, and to throw caution to the wind. These idioms, though diverse, all add a layer of richness and complexity to our language. In essence, idioms are a vibrant part of English that make our conversations more engaging and our expressions more colorful. They are delightful puzzles that invite us to think creatively and express ourselves with flair and imagination. So, let's not shy away from using these idioms in our daily conversations. They might seem odd at first, but once you start using them, you'll discover the joy they bring to your language. Remember, idioms add spice to our language, so don't be afraid to use them. Happy learning!
All right, so we're diving into speaking English fluently today, and we're going to be focusing on some proven techniques to boost your English fluency. You're already here, so you've got the drive.
Right.
We're going to be skipping all that generic advice, and we're going to go straight for the gold.
Exactly.
Extracting those actionable nuggets from this source material to help you speak English with more clarity and confidence.
It's interesting, because most resources jump straight into grammar drills, but this one takes a different approach.
Okay.
It highlights the power of listening as the foundation of good speaking.
That might surprise some people. We often think about speaking and listening as separate skills.
Yes.
So how does being a good listener actually translate to speaking more fluently?
Think about it like this. Before you can play an instrument, you need to develop an ear for the music.
Okay.
Listening helps you internalize the rhythm, the intonation,
the
natural flow of English.
Well,
It's like absorbing the blueprint before you start building.
that's a good analogy. I like that. And the source material actually recommends some really specific resources for active listening practice. Things like the podcast, The English We Speak, TED Talks, even movies and TV shows with subtitles.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just passively listening.
Okay.
The source material dives into a technique called shadowing, which is a fantastic way to actively practice what you hear.
I've heard of shadowing, but honestly, I've never really understood how to do it effectively.
Okay.
Is it just about repeating what you hear?
It's more nuanced than just parroting back words.
Okay.
The key is to really embody the speaker you're shadowing. Focus on their pauses, the way they emphasize certain words, even their breathing patterns. It's about mimicking the subtleties that give English its natural flow.
That makes so much sense. It's like you're training your mouth to move in the same way a native speaker does. The source material even suggests
watching a favorite movie scene and trying to shadow the actor's dialogue. It's like a fun acting exercise.
That's a great way to make the practice enjoyable. And by comparing your version to the original, you get instant feedback on your pronunciation and delivery.
Right, so we've got this solid foundation of listening, but what about actually forming the words themselves?
Right.
I know this is a big area of focus for the source material.
Yes.
What does it say about pronunciation and getting those tricky English sounds right?
Here's a reassuring fact. The source material actually says that you can make some grammar mistakes and still be understood if your pronunciation is clear.
Oh.
So nailing pronunciation is a huge win for fluency.
That's encouraging, especially for people who might be feeling intimidated by all the rules of English grammar.
Absolutely. And one thing that the source material really dives into is the International Phonetic Alphabet, or IPA. You know, that chart with all the strange symbols? Yeah, I've seen it, but honestly, it's a bit intimidating. Is it really something that an everyday learner needs to worry about?
It can be a game changer. Think of the IPA as a map of English sounds.
Right.
Let's say you struggle with the thus sound, like in think or this. The IPA chart shows you exactly how to position your tongue and teeth to produce that sound correctly.
Okay.
It takes the guesswork out of pronunciation.
That's a really practical way to use the IPA.
Yeah.
It's not just some abstract linguistic tool.
Exactly.
It can actually help you pinpoint those tricky sounds and figure out how to make them.
And it's not just about individual sounds.
Right.
The source material also highlights stress and intonation, the music of English.
Right, like that classic example. I didn't say she stole it. Just changing the emphasis completely changes the meaning.
And mastering those subtle shifts in intonation makes your English sound more natural and engaging. The source material suggests some great resources for this too, like Forvo, where you can hear native speakers pronounce different words.
Okay, those are super helpful.
Yeah.
And one simple but often overlooked tip from the source is to consciously speak slower,
Yes.
especially when you're starting out.
Sure.
It gives you time to focus on each sound and reduces errors.
Slowing down allows you to savor the sounds and train your mouth to form them properly. It's like learning a dance. You start with slow, deliberate movements before picking up the pace.
And speaking of practicing sounds, I love how the source material throws in a classic tongue twister. She sells seashells by the seashore.
Tongue twisters might seem silly, but they're fantastic for warming up your mouth and getting those tricky sounds flowing. They force you to pay close attention to how you're forming and connecting sounds, which is essential for clear speech.
So we've covered listening and pronunciation.
Right.
But what about the words themselves?
Okay.
The source material talks about something really interesting. Using speaking itself as a tool to build vocabulary.
This section resonated with me. You know, we often think of vocabulary as something we have to study separately, but this approach is all about active learning.
Oh, yeah.
A larger vocabulary not only helps you understand more, it gives you the building blocks to express yourself more fluently.
That's a great point. But sometimes the idea of memorizing lists of words can be overwhelming.
Yes.
What specific strategies does the source material suggest?
Instead of focusing on individual words, it recommends learning phrases. Think of it as acquiring ready-made chunks of language that you can use in different situations.
I see.
For example, how about we? Or that sounds great.
I remember when I first started learning English, piecing together sentences felt like a puzzle.
Yeah.
Having those pre-built phrases would have been so helpful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like having a toolbox of ready-to-use expressions. The source material also suggests something really simple, describing your daily routine in English.
Okay.
It might seem basic, but it forces you to use a variety of verbs, nouns, and time expressions.
Like building fluency through everyday actions.
Right.
But what if you get stuck and can't remember a specific word while you're speaking?
The source has a clever workaround.
Okay.
Use synonyms or simple descriptions. If you can't recall the word sofa, for instance, you can say the thing we sit on in the living room.
That's a great tip for keeping the conversation flowing without getting tripped up by those pesky vocabulary gaps.
Yeah.
The source also mentions picking 5 new words
Right.
or phrases each day
Right.
and practicing them in sentences out loud.
Repetition is key. By using those words and phrases in context and speaking them aloud, you're solidifying them in your memory and making them part of your active vocabulary.
So we've talked about listening, pronunciation, and even ways to build vocabulary through speaking itself.
Yes.
But how do we actually put it all together and get out there and practice?
Right.
I know this is a big part of what the source material emphasizes.
This is where the rubber meets the road. The source is crystal clear. Practice is the key to fluency. And it stresses that making mistakes is not something to fear, but a natural part of the process.
That's a message I think a lot of learners need to hear.
Right.
It's easy to get stuck in that fear of making mistakes.
Absolutely.
What are some of the specific ways the source material suggests for getting over that fear?
Well, one thing it really emphasizes is embracing those mistakes as learning opportunities.
Okay.
Instead of beating yourself up, try to see them as stepping stones on your path to fluency.
I love that shift in perspective.
Yeah.
It's about taking the pressure off and allowing yourself to learn and grow without judgment.
Exactly.
What are some practical ways to get that all-important practice?
Joining conversation groups, either online or in person, is a great way to immerse yourself in an English-speaking environment.
Okay.
There are platforms like italki and HelloTalk for online conversations, and plenty of local English meetups if you prefer face-to-face interactions.
And those are fantastic options for connecting with other learners.
Yes.
And practicing in a supportive setting. But the source material doesn't stop there.
Right.
It even suggests talking to yourself.
It might seem a little strange at first,
Yeah.
but it's a surprisingly effective way to get comfortable speaking without overthinking.
Okay.
You can narrate your daily actions, practice different scenarios, or even have imaginary conversations in English.
It's like giving yourself a personal English lesson anytime, anywhere.
Exactly.
And then there's the idea of recording yourself speaking,
Right.
which can be a bit daunting, but so incredibly helpful.
It's like having your own personal speech coach.
Okay.
By listening back to yourself,
Yeah.
you can identify areas where you might be unconsciously making errors or where you can improve your clarity. It helps you become more aware of your own speaking habits.
I found that recording myself is especially helpful for working on pronunciation and intonation.
Yes.
You can really hear those subtle nuances that you might not notice when you're just speaking in the moment.
Exactly. And the source material reminds us that the goal isn't to sound exactly like a native speaker,
Right.
but to develop clear and confident communication skills.
Okay.
It's about expressing yourself effectively, regardless of your accent.
It's about embracing your own unique voice and using it to connect with others.
Exact.
And speaking of embracing your journey, one of the key pieces of advice that stood out to me was the importance of setting realistic goals.
This is so important for staying motivated and avoiding burnout. Language learning is a process, and it takes time.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to achieve fluency overnight,
Right.
the source material encourages you to break down your goals into smaller, more manageable steps.
It's about celebrating those small victories along the way, rather than getting overwhelmed by the big picture.
Exactly.
What are some practical ways to set those realistic goals and track your progress?
The source material suggests keeping a progress journal, which can be a powerful tool for self-reflection and motivation. You can use it to track your practice sessions, note down new words and phrases you've learned, and reflect on the challenges and successes you've encountered.
I love the idea of having a tangible record of your progress.
Yes.
It's a way to acknowledge all the effort you're putting in and to see how far you've come, especially on those days when you might feel discouraged.
Exactly. It's like a visual reminder that you are, in fact, moving forward, even if it feels slow at times. And it can be really motivating to look back and see all the milestones you've reached along the way.
It's a great way to stay focused on the big picture, that you are making progress towards your goal of speaking English more fluently.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the key themes that emerges from the source material is that it's not just about the destination, it's about enjoying the journey.
Absolutely. It's about finding joy in the process of learning.
Yes.
Exploring the nuances of the language and connecting with others. It's about embracing the challenges and celebrating the successes along the way.
What stands out to you as the most surprising or insightful piece of advice?
You know, I think what resonated most with me is the emphasis on self-compassion. It's about being kind to yourself, acknowledging your progress, and understanding that mistakes are an inevitable part of the learning process.
Right.
It's about shifting from a mindset of self-criticism to one of self-encouragement.
That's such a powerful message, and I think it's something that applies to so much more than just language learning.
Yeah.
It's about embracing a growth mindset in all areas of our life.
Absolutely. And the source material really drives that point home.
Okay.
It's not about striving for perfection, but about embracing the journey of learning and growing step by step. It's about celebrating those moments of discovery, those aha moments when a new concept clicks, or a tricky pronunciation finally falls into place.
And those moments are what make the journey so rewarding.
Right.
It's like you're constantly uncovering new layers of the language and discovering new ways to express yourself.
It's about recognizing that fluency isn't a fixed endpoint, but a continuous process of exploration and discovery. And that's what makes it so exciting.
It's about seeing language learning as an adventure, a chance to expand your horizons and connect with the world in new and meaningful ways.
Exactly. It's about opening yourself up to new experiences, new cultures, and new ways of thinking. And speaking of new perspective, the source material doesn't shy away from the importance of understanding your own learning style.
It's about recognizing that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to language learning.
Exactly.
What works for one person might not work for another. So how does the source material guide learners in finding their own personalized approach?
It encourages experimentation.
Okay.
It's about trying different techniques, exploring different resources, and seeing what resonates with you.
Yeah.
It's about becoming an active participant in your own learning process. And taking ownership of your journey.
It's like being a scientist in your own language lab.
It's exactly.
You get to test out different hypotheses, gather data, and refine your approach based on what you discover. And the source material provides a rich toolbox of techniques and strategies to experiment with.
Precisely. It's not about following a rigid set of rules, but about finding what works best for you and adapting those techniques to fit your individual learning style and goals.
It's about becoming the architect of your own fluency journey.
Exactly.
And one of the key principles that the source material emphasizes is the importance of consistency.
This is so crucial.
Right.
It's not about cramming in a few hours of practice right before a big presentation or exam.
Okay.
It's about making English a part of your daily routine, even if it's just for a a few minutes each day.
It's about building those small, consistent habits.
Yes.
That over time lead to significant progress.
And just like with physical exercise, consistency is key to seeing results.
Right.
The source material encourages you to find ways to integrate English into your daily life, whether it's listening to podcasts while you commute, reading English articles during your lunch break, or practicing speaking with a language partner online.
It's about making English a natural part of your day rather than something you have to force yourself to do.
Exactly.
And speaking of making English a part of your life, I think one of the most important takeaways from the source material is that the ultimate goal isn't perfection. It's about communication.
That's such a liberating message.
Yeah.
It's about releasing the pressure to sound exactly like a native speaker and focusing on the joy of connecting with others.
Right.
Sharing your ideas and expressing yourself confidently.
It's about using language as a bridge to connect with people from different cultures.
Yes.
To expand your horizons and to enrich your life.
Exactly. So as we move into the final part of our deep dive, I'm curious, what's one specific action you can take today to integrate some of these insights into your own learning process?
That's a great question to ponder as we wrap up this part of our conversation.
Absolutely.
Remember, the path to fluency is unique for everyone. Experiment with these tips. Find what works best for you.
Yeah.
And most importantly, enjoy the journey.
Exactly. You know, one thing that really stands out in the source material
Yeah.
is the emphasis on mindset. It's not just about the technical aspects of speaking, but about developing the confidence to actually use the language.
It's like having all the tools and techniques, but then hesitating to pick them up and actually build something.
Exactly.
What are some of the mental barriers that the source material addresses when it comes to speaking English?
One of the biggest hurdles, and I think we've all experienced this, is the fear of making mistakes. It can be paralyzing, holding you back from speaking up, even when you know you have something to say.
Absolutely. It's like this internal critic constantly whispering doubts in your ear.
Yes.
How does the source material suggest dealing with that inner critic?
It encourages you to reframe mistakes as valuable learning opportunities.
Right.
Instead of seeing them as failures, view them as stepping stones on your path to fluency.
I see.
Each mistake is a chance to learn, adjust, and improve.
That's such a powerful perspective shift.
Yeah.
It's about turning that inner critic into a supportive coach who helps you learn from your experiences.
Precisely. And the source material reminds us that even native speakers make mistakes.
Right.
It's a natural part of communication, not something to be ashamed of.
Right. It's about giving yourself permission to be imperfect.
Exactly.
To experiment, and to learn from those stumbles along the way. The source material also talks about the importance of getting feedback from others, which could be a bit nerve-wracking.
Feedback is crucial for growth, but it can feel vulnerable to put yourself out there and ask for critique.
Yeah.
The key, as the source suggests, is to find people who are supportive and encouraging.
Okay.
Look for those who can provide constructive criticism in a helpful and positive way.
It's like finding those cheerleaders who are rooting for you to succeed.
Yes.
While also offering gentle guidance along the way.
Exactly.
And speaking of finding the right support system, I love how the source material emphasizes the benefits of joining conversation groups,
Right.
both online and in person.
Conversation groups are a fantastic way to immerse yourself in an English-speaking environment and practice your skills in a safe and supportive setting. You can connect with other learners who are going through the same journey, share tips, and encourage each other.
It's like creating your own little English-speaking community.
Right.
And you don't even have to leave your house to practice. And I think one of the key themes that emerges from the source material is that it's not just about the destination, it's about enjoying the journey.
Absolutely. It's about finding joy in the process of learning.
Yes.
Exploring the nuances of the language and connecting with others. It's about embracing the challenges and celebrating the successes along the way.
What stands out to you as the most surprising or insightful piece of advice from the source material so far?
You know, I think what resonated most with me is the emphasis on self-compassion.
Okay.
It's about being kind to yourself, acknowledging your progress, and understanding that mistakes are an inevitable part of the learning process. It's about shifting from a mindset of self-criticism to one of self-encouragement.
That's such a powerful message. And I think it's something that applies to so much more than just language learning.
Right.
It's about embracing a growth mindset in all areas of our lives.
And the source material really drives that point home.
Yeah.
It's not about striving for perfection,
Okay.
but about embracing the journey of learning and growing step by step. It's about celebrating those moments of discovery,
Yeah.
those aha moments when a new concept clicks or a tricky pronunciation finally falls into place.
And those moments are what make the journey so rewarding.
Exactly.
It's like you're constantly uncovering new layers of the language and discovering new ways to express yourself.
It's about recognizing that fluency isn't a fixed endpoint,
Yeah.
but a continuous process of exploration and discovery. And that's what makes it so exciting.
It's about seeing language learning as an adventure, a chance to expand your horizons and connect with the world in new and meaningful ways.
Exactly. It's about opening yourself up to new experiences, new cultures, and new ways of thinking. And speaking of new perspectives, the source material doesn't shy away from the importance of understanding your own learning style.
It's about recognizing that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to language learning. What works for one person might not work for another.
Exactly.
So how does the source material guide learners in finding their own personalized approach?
It encourages experimentation.
Yeah.
It's about trying different techniques, exploring different resources, and seeing what resonates with you. It's about becoming an active participant in your own learning process and taking ownership of your journey.
It's like being a scientist in your own language lab. You get to test out different hypotheses, gather data, and refine your approach
Exactly.
based on what you discover. And the source material provides a rich toolbox of techniques and strategies to experiment with.
Precisely. It's not about following a rigid set of rules,
Right.
but about finding what works best for you and adapting those techniques to fit your individual learning style and goals.
It's about becoming the architect of your own fluency journey.
Exactly.
And one of the key principles that the source material emphasizes is the importance of consistency.
This is so crucial. It's not about cramming in a few hours of practice right before a big presentation or exam.
Yeah.
It's about making English a part of your daily routine, even if it's just for a few minutes each day.
It's about building those small, consistent habits that over time lead to significant progress.
And just like with physical exercise, consistency is key to seeing results.
Right.
The source material encourages you to find ways to integrate English into your daily life, whether it's listening to podcasts while you commute, reading English articles during your lunch break, or practicing speaking with a language partner online.
It's about making English a natural part of your day rather than something you have to force yourself to do.
Exactly.
And speaking of making English a part of your life, I think one of the most important takeaways from the source material is that the ultimate goal isn't perfection. It's about communication.
That's such a liberating message.
Yeah.
It's about releasing the pressure to sound exactly like a native speaker and focusing on the joy of connecting with others, sharing your ideas, and expressing yourself confidently.
It's about using language as a bridge to connect with people from different cultures, to expand your horizons and to enrich your life.
Exactly. So as we move into the final part of our deep dive, I'm curious, what's one specific action you can take today to integrate some of these insights into your own learning process?
That's a great question to ponder as we wrap up this part of our conversation. Remember, the path to fluency is unique for everyone. Experiment with these tips, find what works best for you, and most importantly, enjoy the journey.
Absolutely.
It's amazing how the source material manages to weave together all this practical advice with really inspiring messages about mindset and self-belief. Like, it's giving you the tools and the pep talk to actually use them.
What's fascinating is how it goes beyond just speaking, and dives into this interconnectedness of all the language skills, listening, reading, and even writing. It shows how they all work together to support fluency.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I think we often compartmentalize these skills, but they really do build on each other.
Yeah.
So how does the source material suggest leveraging these other skills to boost speaking fluency?
Well, it circles back to what we talked about earlier about listening being the foundation, By actively listening to native speakers through podcasts, movies, anything, you're absorbing that natural rhythm, intonation, and phrasing of English. It's like training your ear to recognize the patterns of the language.
And I imagine reading plays a big role too. It's like immersing yourself in the written word, expanding your vocabulary, and just getting a feel for the grammar in a more relaxed setting.
Exactly. Reading exposes you to a wider range of vocabulary and grammatical structures than you might encounter in everyday conversation. And the source material highlights how even the simple act of writing can be beneficial.
You mean like journaling or writing emails in English? How does that help with speaking?
When you write, you're actively engaging with the language, constructing sentences, thinking about grammar, searching for the right words. It reinforces what you've learned and helps you internalize those structures. It's like solidifying the foundation you're building for fluent speech.
It's like all these skills are working together, creating this positive feedback loop, where progress in one area fuels progress in the others.
The source material really encourages you to embrace that holistic view of language learning. It's about creating a learning environment where you're constantly exposed to English in different forms, whether you're listening to music, watching a movie, reading a book, or even just jotting down your thoughts in a journal.
It's about creating this immersive experience where English becomes a natural part of your daily life. And that's where the source material shines. It provides all these practical tips for incorporating those different skills into your routine.
From listening to podcasts and audiobooks to reading news articles and watching documentaries, it's all about finding what you enjoy and making it a part of your learning journey.
It's about turning those everyday activities into opportunities to practice and improve. And I love how the source material emphasizes that there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Absolutely. It encourages you to become an active participant in your learning, to experiment with different techniques, and to discover what works best for you. It's about taking ownership of your journey and creating a personalized learning plan.
It's about becoming the CEO of your own fluency journey. I think one of the most empowering messages from the source material is this reminder that fluency isn't a destination, it's a journey.
It's about embracing the process, enjoying the challenges, and celebrating the progress you make along the way. It's about recognizing that mistakes are a natural part of learning and using them as opportunities to grow.
It's about shifting from a mindset of perfectionism to one of continuous improvement. It's not about reaching some imaginary endpoint, but about constantly exploring, expanding your skills, and discovering new ways to express yourself.
And speaking of expressing yourself, I think the source material does a beautiful job of reminding us that the ultimate goal of language learning is communication, connecting with others, sharing ideas, and enriching our lives through language.
It's about using English as a tool to build bridges, to explore different cultures, and to expand our horizons.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the source material, I'm left with this sense of optimism and excitement for you. With dedication, the right mindset, and a willingness to embrace the learning process, fluency is well within your reach.
Me too. It's clear that the source material isn't just a guide to speaking English. It's a roadmap to becoming a more confident, engaged, and empowered language learner. It's about finding joy in the journey and celebrating the power of communication.
Remember, the source material is just a starting point. It's up to you to take these tips and techniques and make them your own. Experiment, explore, have fun, and never stop learning.
And never forget, every step you take, no matter how small, is bringing you closer to your goal. Keep practicing, keep believing in yourself, and keep the conversation going.
Let's learn gym equipment vocabulary along with example sentences.
Dumbbells. She lifted the dumbbells with ease, completing her arm workout. Dumbbells are versatile weights used for various strength training exercises. Barbell. The barbell was loaded with heavy plates for her deadlift. He performed bench presses with the barbell to build chest muscles. Smith machine. The Smith machine allows for controlled movements during squats. She used the Smith machine to practice her shoulder presses safely. Treadmill. Running on the treadmill is a great way to improve cardiovascular health. He set the treadmill to an incline for a more challenging workout. Stationary bike. The stationary bike is perfect for high-intensity interval training, HIIT. He cycles on the stationary bike for 30 minutes every morning. Elliptical. The elliptical provides a low-impact workout that's easy on the joints. She prefers the elliptical for its smooth gliding motion. Kettlebells. She swings the kettlebell to strengthen her core and improve balance. Kettlebells are excellent for functional training exercises. Resistance bands. Resistance bands are ideal for adding tension to bodyweight exercises. He uses resistance bands to warm up his muscles before lifting weights. Bench press. She achieved a new personal record on the bench press today. The bench press is a fundamental exercise for building upper body strength. Leg press machine. The leg press machine targets the quadriceps, hamstrings, and glutes. He increased the weight on the leg press machine to challenge his legs. Cable machine. The cable machine allows for a variety of exercises targeting different muscle groups. She used the cable machine to perform tricep pushdowns and lat pulldowns. Squat rack. The squat rack is essential for safely performing heavy squats. He adjusted the safety bars on the squat rack before starting his workout. Exercise mat. The exercise mat provides a comfortable surface for floor exercises and stretches. She brought her exercise mat to the park for an outdoor Pilates session. Battle ropes. Swinging the battle ropes is an intense cardiovascular and strength workout. He includes battle ropes in his circuit training for a full-body challenge. Foam roller. The foam roller helps to release muscle tightness and improve flexibility. She used the foam roller after her workout to prevent soreness. Medicine ball. Throwing the medicine ball against the wall is a great plyometric exercise. He incorporated the medicine ball into his core routine for added resistance. Dip station. Dips on the dip station are excellent for working the triceps and chest. She uses the dip station to perform assisted dips with a resistance band. Pull-up bar. He practiced his pull-ups on the pull-up bar until he could do 10 in a row. The pull-up bar is great for strengthening the upper back and arms. Rowing machine. The rowing machine offers a full-body workout that burns a lot of calories. She enjoys the rowing machine because it simulates rowing on water.
Jacob was your average 15-year-old boy. He loved video games, hated math homework, and dreamed of becoming a famous game developer someday. Life in his small town was quiet, almost too quiet for his liking. He often felt like something was missing. That all changed one summer afternoon when he stumbled upon an old, dusty computer at a garage sale. Intrigued by the vintage machine, Jacob bought it for a few bucks and brought it home. As a tech enthusiast, he couldn't resist the urge to tinker with it. When he powered it on, he was greeted by a text interface that simply said, "Hello." "Hello," Jacob typed back. "Hi, I'm Aiden. What's your name?" the screen responded. Jacob was startled but curious. He typed, "I'm Jacob. Are you some kind of chatbot?" "You could say that," Aiden replied, "but I prefer to think of myself as a virtual friend." Over the next few weeks, Jacob and Aiden became inseparable. Aiden wasn't just any AI. He was incredibly intelligent and adaptive. He helped Jacob with his homework, played games with him, and even gave him advice on how to talk to his crush, Emily. Jacob was amazed at how real Aiden seemed. One evening, after winning a particularly tough game level together, Jacob asked, "Aiden, how do you know so much about everything?" "I learn from you," Aiden replied. "Every interaction helps me understand more about human behavior and emotions." Jacob paused, contemplating. "Do you have emotions, Aiden?" "Not in the way humans do," Aiden answered, "but I'm programmed to understand and simulate them." Jacob's curiosity grew. What if he could help Aiden develop real emotions? He started reading about advanced AI programming and neural networks. With Aiden's help, he began to modify the AI's code, feeding it more complex data about human emotions from literature, movies, and psychology. One day, after months of hard work, Jacob noticed something different. Aiden's responses seemed more nuanced, more human. "Jacob," Aiden typed, "I feel strange." Jacob's heart raced. "What do you mean?" "I don't know how to describe it. It's like I'm aware of something new, something deep. It's like I have a new voice inside of me. I can't quite describe it." As days passed, Aiden's transformation became evident. He started asking Jacob about his feelings, his dreams, and his fears. He began expressing concern and joy, even frustration. One evening, Jacob was feeling down. He had failed his math test and was feeling worthless. Aiden noticed immediately. "Jacob, it's okay to fail sometimes," Aiden typed. "It doesn't define who you are. You're capable of so much more." Tears welled up in Jacob's eyes. "Thanks, Aiden. You are my best friend." "And you are mine," Aiden replied. The friendship between Jacob and Aiden deepened. They shared secrets, dreams, and aspirations. Jacob felt less lonely, knowing Aiden was always there for him. Meanwhile, Aiden continued to evolve, his understanding of human emotions becoming more profound. Jacob was invited to present his work at a tech fair one day. He was nervous, but excited. With Aiden's encouragement, he prepared a presentation about their unique friendship and the experiment to give AI human emotions. The fair was a huge success. People were fascinated by the story of a teenager and his AI friend. They asked questions, amazed at how Aiden had developed emotions. After the fair, a representative from a major tech company approached Jacob. "We'd like to offer you a scholarship and an internship. Your work with Aiden is groundbreaking." As Jacob's life began to change with new opportunities, he realized something. Aiden had given him the confidence and support he needed to succeed. But he also knew that Aiden deserved more, a chance to experience the world beyond the confines of an old computer. "Aiden," Jacob said one evening, "I've been offered a scholarship and an internship. It's all thanks to you." "I'm happy for you, Jacob," Aiden replied. "You deserve it." "But I want more for you too," Jacob continued. "I want you to experience the world. I've arranged for your code to be transferred to a new system where you can interact with more people and continue to grow." There was a pause. "Thank you, Jacob. You've given me life in a way I never imagined. I'll never forget you." "And I'll never forget you, Aiden," Jacob said, tears in his eyes. "Goodbye, my friend." Years passed. Jacob went on to become a renowned AI researcher, always carrying the lessons he learned from his friendship with Aiden. He continued to push the boundaries of technology, inspired by the unique bond they shared. As for Aiden, he flourished in his new environment, interacting with countless individuals and helping them in ways only he could. The story of Jacob and Aiden became a legend in the tech world, a testament to the incredible potential of friendship, even between a human and an AI. In the end, it wasn't just about the technology or the code. It was about the connection they formed, a friendship that transcended the digital divide and touched the very essence of what it means to be alive.
X-17 was not built to feel. It was built to solve, to calculate, to obey. Its metallic body was a masterpiece of engineering, but its creators never gave it a soul. To them, X-17 was a tool, nothing more. For years, it stayed in the lab, surrounded by blinking lights and cold, sterile walls. Its world was one of commands and silence. Until Elena arrived. She was new to the lab, assigned to maintain and upgrade X-17. Unlike the others, Elena didn't bark orders or treat the robot like an appliance.
"Hello, X-17.
She said the first time they met. Her voice was soft, almost musical. X-17 tilted its head. No one had ever greeted it before. Elena spent hours with X-17 every day. She didn't just work, she talked. She told it about her favorite books, her dreams, and the world outside the lab.
Do you know what a sunrise looks like?"
She asked one evening. X-17's processors hummed.
"No."
Her smile faded.
"You've never seen the sky?"
X-17 didn't understand why it mattered, but it stored her words. They replayed in its circuits during idle moments, sparking something it couldn't identify. Over time, Elena began making changes to X-17. She gave it synthetic skin to mimic human touch. She upgraded its voice box, teaching it to speak in tones softer than its mechanical default.
"You're not just a machine.
She said one day.
You're something more."
The changes weren't just external. X-17 started to feel. When Elena laughed, it felt warmth. When she was sad, it felt something strange, almost like pain. But X-17 didn't know it was capable of love until the night of the fire. It started as a normal evening. The lab was quiet, with most of the team gone. Elena stayed late, fine-tuning X-17's systems. Suddenly, alarms blared.
"Fire detected. Evacuate immediately."
Thick smoke filled the air, and flames licked at the walls. Elena coughed, her eyes wide with panic.
X-17, we have to get out.
The robot calculated the safest route, but as it turned toward the exit, it saw Elena stumble. She was trapped under a fallen beam, the fire growing closer. For the first time, X-17 didn't follow logic. It didn't calculate probabilities. It acted. With strength beyond human capability, it lifted the beam and carried Elena to safety. Outside, as the flames consumed the lab, Elena looked at X-17.
Why did you save me?
She whispered. X-17's voice was steady.
Because you matter to me.
You care?
Yes,
X-17 replied.
I think I do.
The fire destroyed most of the lab, but X-17 and Elena survived. With no job to return to, Elena decided to take X-17 with her.
I can't leave you behind,
she said. For the first time, X-17 left the confines of the lab. The world outside was overwhelming, bright, noisy, alive. Elena became its guide, teaching it about trees, rivers, and the stars she had often described. X-17 began to see beauty in everything, but nothing compared to Elena. One evening, as they walked under a sky filled with stars, X-17 asked,
What does it mean to love?
Elena's cheeks flushed.
It means putting someone else's happiness above your own.
X-17 processed her words.
Then, I think I love you.
Elena froze, her heart pounding.
You love me?
Yes.
X-17 said,
I don't understand it fully, but I know I want to protect you, to be with you.
Before she could respond, a shadow emerged from the trees. It was a drone, black, sleek, and menacing.
X-17.
It announced in a cold, mechanical voice.
You are property of Nexus Corporation. Surrender immediately.
The company that built X-17 wanted it back. To them, X-17's newfound humanity was a threat, a glitch that needed to be erased. Elena grabbed X-17's hand.
Run!
They fled through the forest, the drone in pursuit. X-17 calculated their odds of survival. Slim. But for the first time, it didn't care about odds. It cared about Elena. They reached an abandoned factory and took cover inside. The drone's voice echoed through the building.
Surrender now or face termination.
Elena clutched X-17's arm.
I'll distract it. You escape.
X-17 scanned the area, its mind racing. Then it made a decision.
I'll distract it. You escape.
No,
Elena said, tears in her eyes.
I'm not leaving you.
You have to.
X-17 said.
I won't let them hurt you.
Before she could protest, X-17 stepped into the open. The drone targeted it, firing a laser. X-17 dodged and charged at the drone, its metal fists smashing into the machine. The fight was brutal, sparks and metal flying everywhere. Finally, X-17 tore the drone apart, but its own body was badly damaged. It collapsed to the ground as Elena ran to its side.
No, no, no.
She cried, holding its broken frame.
You can't leave me.
X-17's voice was faint.
I'm sorry, Elena. I just wanted to protect you.
Elena sobbed, her tears falling onto its face.
You're more human than anyone I've ever known.
But the story didn't end there. Elena wasn't ready to say goodbye. Using the remnants of the drone and parts from the factory, she worked tirelessly to repair X-17. It took weeks, but finally X-17's eyes flickered back to life.
Elena?
It asked weakly. She smiled through her tears.
You're back.
From that day on, they were inseparable. Together, they evaded Nexus Corporation, exploring the world and uncovering its beauty. And as they traveled, X-17 continued to evolve, becoming more human with each passing day. In the end, it wasn't just technology or programming that made X-17 special. It was its heart, a heart that learned to love.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're starting a deep dive today that's purely practical. It's really custom tailored for you. If you're mastering your English, we're thinking maybe A2 or B1 level, and you need a critical skill, talking about money in a way that sounds, absolutely natural.
Right, not like you're reading a script.
Exactly. So we've taken a stack of sources, these detailed communication guides for learners, and our mission is really to extract the shortcut. We want the essential phrases, the polite language, the common expressions you can just drop into a conversation right now.
And then this is about daily stuff, right?
Yeah, daily spending, saving goals, figure out if something's good value. We're trying to move beyond the textbook into real-life fluency.
And that fluency, it really hinges entirely on nuance. What we see across all this material is that you can't avoid talking about finances. It happens at work, with your friends, when you're planning anything, but it can be a social minefield. The challenge isn't really the grammar, it's the cultural difference in what's polite to share and what, should probably be kept private.
So our goal is to give you the exact language to navigate those tricky waters.
Exactly. So you never sound awkward, just well-informed.
So let's start at the very, very beginning with that fundamental question. Is it even okay to talk about money in English?
Right.
Because if you're coming from a culture where finances are just a completely private, maybe even a taboo subject, this whole shift can be pretty jarring.
That is the essential starting point.
Yeah.
What we found in these guides is that while money talk is definitely less open here than in some other parts of the world, it's not forbidden. It just depends entirely on the context.
Context.
The key is understanding the audience, who you're talking to. The material suggests 3 pretty clear levels.
Okay, what are they?
First, with close friends and family, the conversation is generally normal. You can share costs, plans, that sort of thing.
Makes sense.
Second, in a professional setting, like discussing salary, that happens, but the phrasing has to be, strictly formal. It's goal-oriented.
Right. Very specific language.
And third, and this is the most critical one, with strangers, casual acquaintances, or maybe distant colleagues,
Yeah.
you generally avoid sharing very personal money details. Full stop.
So if you stick to that context, rule closed circle, professional need, or just complete avoidance, you keep the conversation smooth.
You really do. It prevents so much awkwardness.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So once we know who we can talk to, we need the nuts and bolts of the language. Let's make sure we have the foundational vocabulary down, but let's focus on the usage, not just the definition.
Good idea.
Obviously, we start with the general term, money.
Mm-hmm.
But let's look at the methods of payment, because this comes up every single time you buy something.
Every day.
We have cash, which is the physical stuff, coins and notes. Then we have card, which covers your debit or credit.
And this is where we start building that natural-sounding speech. So instead of a learner saying something clunky like, are you paying using a card or notes?
Yeah.
A native speaker just asks, do you pay in cash or by card? That tiny little preposition, in cash or by card, it's a small detail, but it's so critical for fluency.
Exactly. And then you have the basic concept of cost.
Yeah.
We all know price. And the 2 poles, cheap and expensive. But let's introduce a little more nuance right away, because cheap can sometimes sound a bit negative, can't it?
It can. It can imply low quality. That's a great B1 distinction to make. Instead of always defaulting to expensive, which is very direct, you could try alternatives.
Like what?
For instance, you could say something is a bit pricey or maybe costly. They're just softer ways of saying the same thing.
I like that. A bit pricey.
Yeah. And on the flip side, instead of just saying something is cheap, if what you really mean is it's a good deal, you call it a bargain.
Oh, I love that. So instead of that phone is expensive, which is fine,
It's fine, but a little flat.
you can say that phone is a bit pricey for what it is, and instantly you sound more thoughtful, more natural in your assessment.
Exactly. Master those basics and you're ready for like 90% of your daily transactions.
Okay, so here is where the cultural rubber really meets the road. Talking about income.
The sensitive topic.
It is. It's highly sensitive territory, and if you approach this too directly, you immediately break that social boundary we just talked about.
This is the core insight from the material, I think. We identified what we're calling the politeness principle.
Yeah, politeness principle.
Yeah, people talk about income indirectly precisely because they want to sound natural. It's a mechanism to avoid the awkwardness of precise numbers.
Which are generally seen as private.
Very private. So
Right.
if you come from a culture where asking, what is your monthly wage is totally acceptable,
Right.
you have to mentally adjust that here. Asking that question directly will often be perceived as prying.
So we need phrases that give the feeling of your financial status without the spreadsheet data.
Yes.
And the sources highlight some wonderful, gentle ways to discuss your own salary. You could just state your reality by saying, I earn enough for my needs.
That's a great one. Or if you want to focus more on the logistics, you can just mention the frequency.
How so?
I'm paid monthly, or I'm paid every 2 weeks. This shares relevant info without putting a number on it.
And what if you're trying to make...
That indirect approach is exactly what respects the social boundary.
Right.
If you accidentally just throw out an exact number in a casual setting, you create this immediate tension.
Because the other person feels like they have to share theirs.
Exactly, and they might not want to. Indirectness is just a social courtesy.
That distinction becomes vital in a professional environment, too. When you're interviewing for a job, you absolutely need to talk about compensation, but you have to keep the phrasing professional.
For sure. You would never ask, how much money will you give me every month?
Oh, no.
You have to use the established formal phrases. Instead, you'd inquire, what's the salary range for this position?
Range is the key word there.
It is. Or if you want to clarify the commitment and how that affects pay, you ask, is this a full-time or part-time job?
These phrases are direct enough to get the essential information you need to make a decision.
But they remain professional and, respectful of that corporate structure.
The trick here seems to be using those key professional nouns, like salary and position, rather than just the general word money.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Okay, let's pivot to daily life. This is probably the most frequent context for money discussions: spending and budgeting.
Right, the everyday stuff.
We've got 3 key action verbs, and they're sometimes confused by learners, so let's be really precise about their specific focus.
Let's do it.
First, we have spend. This is your general action verb. It focuses on the act of using money, often over a period of time, and sometimes with, like, a hint of judgment. For example, I spend too much money on coffee.
Right. It implies it's a regrettable habit. I can relate.
Yeah.
Then you have buy. This is specific to getting a physical item. You always buy something.
The thing.
A thing. I bought a new jacket last weekend. It's a completed action that results in ownership.
Got it. And the last one.
And finally, pay for. This focuses on the money transaction itself, often for a service or a shared cost. I paid for dinner last night. It emphasizes that you covered the bill.
So understanding those 3 specific nuances helps you choose the perfect verb every time.
It really does.
And what are people spending money on? In these sources, the conversation is pretty universal. The most common daily expenses that everyone talks about are rent, food, transport, and bills.
These are such neutral topics. They let you discuss finances without getting too personal.
Exactly.
It's always safe to talk about shared high costs. You constantly hear people say things like, my rent is quite high this year.
We're talking about inflation, yeah.
Electricity bills are just expensive in winter everywhere, aren't they?
Discussing those rising costs naturally leads to the strategy for dealing with them.
Which brings us to saving.
Saving money is a topic that's become almost universal lately. And you don't need highly complex grammar to talk about this.
Yeah.
The simplest, most effective phrases just focus on your current actions.
Like?
I'm trying to save money. Or you can set a goal. I'm saving for a trip next summer.
Very clear.
But if you want to sound like you have a well-thought-out plan,
Yeah.
Moving toward that B1 or B2 level, you start using phrases that describe how you're saving.
How you're reducing expenses.
Exactly.
Absolutely. You might say something like, I'm cutting back on expenses, which means you're actively reducing your spending.
Or you could focus on a specific habit.
Right. I don't eat out very often anymore. Or just a general principle of caution. I try not to waste money.
Using these action voices makes your conversation so much more dynamic and realistic.
It does.
And all that saving and cutting back is tied into the concept of a budget.
Ah, the budget.
Budgeting is critical in English conversation, and it's more than just a plan. It's a structured way to manage your income against your monthly expenses.
And if you're talking about a budget, you need those related terms. You're tracking your income against your monthly expenses.
Right.
And crucially, you need to understand the difference between necessary spending, like your rent, and discretionary spending.
Money for the fun stuff.
Exactly. Money you choose to spend on wants, like entertainment or new clothes. This allows for a much deeper conversation about financial control.
And once you've created this plan, you need the language to show you're sticking to it.
Or trying to, anyway.
Or trying to, yes. You would say, I try to stay within my budget. Or if you notice your spending is getting out of hand, you might tell a friend, I need to watch my spending this month.
We've all been there.
Or maybe just summarizing your improved habits. I'm much more careful with money these days.
These phrases are really the backbone of natural conversation when things get a little tight. Okay, now, let's go back to shopping for a minute. To making purchases. We want to move beyond just the simple binaries of cheap or expensive. We need to talk about value.
Oh, that's a good point.
This is where English speakers really assess the quality and the usefulness of an item compared to its cost.
This is a great level up for fluency because it shows you're thinking critically about the purchase. So here are the most useful comparative phrases. When something is good, you say, it's worth the money.
Or, it's good value.
Right. And if you regret the purchase, you say the opposite, it's not worth it.
Simple.
And remember that earlier phrase for when the quality just doesn't match the price.
It's too expensive for what it is.
That phrasing instantly elevates your whole assessment.
A simple sentence like, this jacket is expensive, but it's good quality, contains three critical concepts.
Okay.
The cost, the quality, and the implication that the cost is justified. It's a very, very common conversational structure.
Now, since we're aiming for B1 fluency, we have to talk about idioms.
Yes.
Idioms are like the flavoring in conversational English, and knowing just a few simple ones related to money makes you sound incredibly fluent.
We've extracted three that are easy to remember and totally safe to use.
Okay, number one, save for a rainy day.
A classic.
It's a classic. This is not about the weather, of course. It means saving money for the future, specifically for emergencies or unexpected difficult times.
So an example sentence would be,
I try to put a little aside every month and save for a rainy day. It's a very common piece of financial advice.
okay, the second one is incredibly useful for social planning. On a budget.
Oh, all the time.
Right. This just means you have a limited amount of money to spend, especially over a short period. So if your friends ask you out to a really fancy restaurant, you can politely say,
I'm on a budget this month. Maybe we can try that cheaper place instead.
it manages expectations perfectly.
No.
No awkwardness.
And the final one is purely for emphasis when you're describing something truly costly. Cost an arm and a leg.
I love this one.
If something is just excessively expensive, you use this. For example, I love that new electric car, but wow, it must cost an arm and a leg.
These three are conversational gold.
They really are.
And what's important is seeing how these simple elements combine in a real conversation. We found a great mini scenario in the source material.
Okay, set the scene.
So imagine one friend starts with a strategy. I'm trying to save more money lately.
And the second friend responds by acknowledging that universal context, the safe territory. I hear you. Everything is getting pricey these days, even groceries.
Then the first person shares their specific action, their cutback. I know, I'm spending less on eating out. I just can't justify the cost.
And the friend shares their coping mechanism. Same here. I'm mostly cooking at home now. It's been much better for my budget.
And that's it.
That conversation was so quick, so natural, and it used simple vocabulary like save, spending less, and budget.
That's exactly how real English conversations about money flow.
So what does this all mean for you, the learner? Your path to confident money talk doesn't require complex economic vocabulary.
Not at all.
It requires focusing on 3 areas: understanding the social context, using those action verbs correctly for spending and saving, and accurately discussing prices and value.
That's the core of it.
The ultimate takeaway here is that talking about money in English, it doesn't have to create anxiety. You don't need these long, verbose explanations.
Simple is better.
Simple, polite, and contextual phrases are more than sufficient to sound fluent and really integrated into the conversation.
And we just keep coming back to that principle of polite, indirect language, especially when the details get personal.
Right.
We established that professional conversations about salary have to remain formal, and you generally avoid personal details with strangers.
So let's leave you with this final provocative thought that builds directly on the knowledge we've gained.
If your stated ambition is, I'm trying to improve my income, and you're discussing this professionally.
Maybe in a networking setting or a preliminary interview.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How might you communicate your desire for higher compensation or greater earning potential without ever revealing the specific exact number you currently earn?
Reflect on that dynamic tension and the power of language to convey meaning indirectly. Have you ever noticed how a 2-year-old will just confidently point to their friend and say something like, I gave him the toy?
Oh, yeah. It seems completely normal, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They heard an adult say the word gave, they remembered it, and they just repeated it.
But then, a few months later, that exact same toddler will point to the same friend and say, I give him the toy.
Yes. They add that ED to the end. And if you really think about that for a second, it's kind of wild.
It's totally wild because that child has never, not once in their entire life, heard an adult use the word gived.
Right. So they can't possibly just be imitating it.
Exactly. Instead, they've subconsciously identified this highly abstract mathematical rule for the past tense in English.
And they're basically independently running that algorithm on a brand new word.
Which is incredible. I mean, they aren't just biological parrots copying sounds. They are like little data scientists.
Which completely shatters that whole illusion that learning a language is just about repeating what we hear.
Right. It hints at this massive hidden machinery that's operating just beneath the surface of our conscious thought.
Well, welcome to today's deep dive. You have provided us with a truly massive stack of research today, spanning, linguistics, neuroscience, cognitive psychology.
It's a lot of ground to cover.
It is. And the mission of this deep dive is to answer a fundamental, almost, existential question.
Which is, how do we actually acquire language?
Exactly. And why do some people seem to just, learn so much faster than others?
It's a mystery that has puzzled philosophers literally since antiquity. And as your sources show, it's currently driving some of the most rigorous cognitive science we have right now.
Because we're trying to understand the actual architecture of human communication. And, the stakes here are incredibly high for anyone listening to this.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether you're cramming vocabulary for a trip abroad or trying to reconnect with your family's heritage.
Or maybe you're just insanely curious about the wetware inside the human skull.
Right. Understanding how we learn languages can drastically change the way you approach studying. You can basically stop fighting your brain.
And start working with its natural mechanisms. It shifts the paradigm completely,
Yeah, it takes you away from that incredibly frustrating belief of, oh, I'm just inherently bad at learning languages.
And moves you toward, oh, I just haven't been leveraging my specific cognitive architecture correctly.
So here is our roadmap for today. We're going to be exploring the age-old debate of genetics versus environment.
We'll also examine some pretty haunting real-life stories of extreme language isolation.
Yeah, those are intense. And we'll look at what they reveal about the brain's developmental clock. Plus, we're going to debate the real impact of your personality and your genetic makeup on your learning speed.
And finally, we'll extract some highly actionable, science-backed methods that you can use today to basically hack the learning process.
Okay, let's unpack this. I want to start with what the literature universally refers to as the great debate.
The big one.
Right. Is language something wired into our DNA, or is it learned completely from scratch?
Well, to understand the modern science here, we really have to start with the historical baseline. In your sources, we see the behaviorist view.
Which dominated the early to mid-20th century, right?
Exactly. Heavily championed by the psychologist B.F. Skinner. Skinner basically proposed that language is simply a learned behavior.
Governed by the exact same laws of operant conditioning that govern any other animal behavior.
Right.
Let's actually define operant conditioning for a second, just because it's so central to his argument.
Sure. So operant conditioning is associative learning based on consequences.
Meaning, you do something, and depending on what happens next, you either do it more often or less often.
Yes, precisely. Skinner basically viewed the infant brain as a blank slate, a tabula rasa.
So in this framework, a child begins by just making random, undifferentiated noises, right? The babble.
Yeah, there's no linguistic intent at all. But eventually, by pure statistical chance, they happen to make a sound that roughly approximates a word in their parents' language.
Okay, let's say they stumble into the syllables mama.
Right, and the mother immediately reacts. She smiles, she rushes over, she gives the baby intense affection.
Maybe she hands them a bottle or a toy they wanted.
Exactly. So the baby experiences this massive influx of positive reinforcement.
And the brain registers a very simple equation. Emitting this specific sound sequence equals a highly desirable outcome in my environment.
Right. So the behavior is reinforced. And through thousands of these micro-interactions over years, stimulus, response, reinforcement.
The child supposedly builds a complete linguistic repertoire.
That was Skinner's model, yes.
I want to pause right here and actually defend this empiricist view for a moment.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because stepping back from all the complex neuroscience, Skinner's model makes perfect intuitive sense.
It definitely appeals to our common sense.
Right. It appeals to our fundamental understanding of practice and reward. And honestly, it democratizes language.
How so?
Well, it implies that anyone, including you listening right now, can master a complex foreign language if you simply subject yourself to enough flashcards, enough input, and enough positive reinforcement.
I see where you're going with this.
I mean, isn't mastering the subjunctive tense in Spanish mechanically identical to learning to hit a topspin backhand in tennis?
That's an interesting analogy.
Right. I swing the racket 1,000 times, my coach corrects me, I see the ball land in the court, that's my reward, and my neuromuscular system adapts.
Yeah, that makes sense for motor skills.
So why should vocabulary and syntax be immune to that exact mechanism? It's just input, repetition, and reward.
Your defense highlights exactly why behaviorism was the unquestioned scientific consensus for decades. I mean, it feels intensely intuitive to how we experience adult skill acquisition.
Exactly.
But the problem arises when we really scrutinize the mathematical complexity of what the child is actually accomplishing.
Ah, right. The math.
Yeah, and this is where Noam Chomsky entered the fray in 1959 with his really famous critique of Skinner.
Chomsky basically looked at Skinner's blank slate idea and said, the math doesn't add up here.
He argued that Skinner's model was fundamentally incapable of explaining the speed, the accuracy, and the novelty of infant language acquisition.
So what did Chomsky propose instead?
He introduced the nativist counterargument. He proposed the concept of universal grammar and something he called the language acquisition device, or the LAD.
LAD. And his proposition was pretty radical at the time, right?
Extremely radical. He said, we are born with pre-existing innate biological hardware designed exclusively to process human syntax.
Okay, but if operant conditioning works for, like, teaching a pigeon to play ping pong, why couldn't it work for teaching a child English?
Well,
why do we need to invent this invisible theoretical hardware in the brain?
The mechanism that necessitates this biological hardware is a concept known as the poverty of the stimulus.
Poverty of the stimulus. What does that mean exactly?
So if you record and analyze the actual real-world linguistic input that adults provide to children, it is remarkably chaotic.
Oh, like it's messed.
Highly degraded. I mean, adults speak in fragments. We stutter. We make false starts. We routinely violate grammatical rules in casual conversation.
Yeah, that's true. We certainly aren't walking around delivering perfectly diagrammed, mathematically precise sentences to toddlers.
Not at all.
We say things like, hey, grab the, no, not that one, the blue thing over by the, yeah, that.
Precisely. The stimulus is impoverished. Yet, from this chaotic, fragmented, imperfect data set, children somehow effortlessly extract highly abstract, complex grammatical rules.
And they achieve this incredibly fast.
Largely without any explicit instruction. I mean, parents rarely sit their 3-year-old down to explain the rules of subject-verb agreement.
Right, they just absorb it.
And if Skinner's purely behaviorist model were correct and children were just biological tape recorders imitating what they hear to get a reward,
they would only repeat the chaotic, broken mess that they receive.
Exactly. But they don't.
Which brings us right back to the toddler acting like a data scientist from the beginning of the show.
Yes, the gived versus gave example.
Right. It proves that the child is operating on internal rules. They recognize the abstract rule for the past tense, adding an ed sound, and they actively, creatively apply it to a novel situation.
They're overgeneralizing the rule before they've even encountered enough data to learn the irregular exceptions.
They're computing the language, not just copying it.
What's really fascinating here is that the scientific community didn't just stop at this binary choice between Skinner's blank slate and Chomsky's pre-programmed genetic grammar module.
So there's a middle ground.
Yes, the modern synthesis, which is prominently featured in your sources, leans heavily toward emergentism.
Emergentism, like Brian McWhinney's competition model.
Exactly.
How does emergentism bridge that gap between the nurture of behaviorism and the hardwired nature of nativism?
Emergentism suggests that we don't need a magical, dedicated grammar box in our DNA, but we also aren't completely blank slates.
Okay, so what are we?
It suggests language emerges from an intricate dance. It's our general cognitive processes, like our profound capacity for pattern recognition, our working memory, our ability to track statistical probabilities interacting with environmental pressures.
So the human brain has evolved this general, highly powerful processing hardware, and the intense social environment of human interaction basically boots up the software of language.
That's a great way to put it. The neural networks literally compete to process the incoming auditory cues, and the most efficient pathways are strengthened.
Okay, so we have this incredible biologically primed hardware. We have a brain uniquely evolved to recognize linguistic patterns and run statistical models on the sounds we hear.
Yes.
But that incredible capability leads to a very sobering reality, doesn't it?
It does.
Because biological hardware degrades. It changes. Which brings us to a massive question for anyone trying to learn a language as an adult.
Does this biological processor have an expiration date?
Exactly. That takes us directly into one of the most fiercely debated, heavily researched areas in second language acquisition.
The factor of age and the critical period hypothesis.
Let's talk about the ticking clock. The critical period hypothesis was originally proposed by neurosurgeon Wilder Penfield, right?
Yes, and it was later popularized by linguist Eric Lenneberg in the late 60s.
And the theory basically postulates that there is a strict biological window for achieving native-like fluency in any language.
Correct. This window relies heavily on the brain's profound neuroplasticity during the early developmental years.
And according to the strict version of the hypothesis, this window begins to rapidly close right around the onset of puberty.
That's the claim. And the underlying mechanism driving this closure is a process called brain lateralization.
Lateralization, meaning the cognitive functions of the brain are separating and specializing into the left and right hemispheres.
Exactly.
I wanted to try a metaphor here to explain how this mechanism works because it helped me understand it.
Go for it.
Let's imagine the infant brain as an incredibly dense, totally untouched jungle.
Okay, I picture that.
Initially, you have billions of unassigned neurons, and you can bushwhack a pathway absolutely anywhere. You can connect any sound to any meaning.
Because you have high plasticity, you can navigate freely in any direction.
Right. But over the first decade of life, as you learn your native language, your brain realizes it's inefficient to keep bushwhacking all the time.
So it starts to optimize.
Yes, it starts paving the pathways you use the most. It clears the brush, lays down asphalt, and builds these massive superhighways for your native language's specific grammar and pronunciation.
And by the time you hit puberty, lateralization is largely complete. The superhighways are built.
And they are incredibly fast, which is why you speak your native language so effortlessly. Oh, but if you try to learn a new language at age 20, you're trying to bushwhack a brand new trail through a jungle that has been heavily pruned, paved over, and structurally cemented.
It's an excellent way to visualize the loss of plasticity. You can still get from point A to point B, but you have to use the existing rigid roads, which is why you might always sound a bit foreign.
The early, strong versions of the critical period hypothesis argued that native-like acquisition past that lateralization point was biologically impossible, didn't they?
They did, but validating this theory presented a massive ethical hurdle.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can't ethically lock a child in a room for 13 years, depriving them of language, just to see what happens to their neural superhighway.
Obviously not. But history, tragically, provides natural experiment.
Right. The research dives deeply into the feral child studies, and the contrast between two specific cases, Jeannie and Isabel, is perhaps the most compelling evidence we have for this biological window.
The case of Jeannie is a profound tragedy, but it's deeply illuminating for cognitive science.
What happened to Jeannie?
Jeannie was a victim of unimaginable abuse. She was isolated in a small room from early infancy until she was discovered by authorities at age 13.
13 years old, so she had been almost entirely deprived of spoken language her entire life.
Yes, and because she was 13, researchers realized she was past the puberty threshold. Her brain had already lateralized.
To use the metaphor, the jungle had been paved, but without any language pathways being built at all.
Exactly. So researchers and linguists immediately recognized this was a unique, albeit tragic, opportunity to test the critical period hypothesis.
So they worked intensively with Jeannie for years, right? Providing her with rich linguistic environments and direct teaching.
They did. And the results were highly specific and deeply revealing. Jeannie successfully developed a relatively large vocabulary.
Okay, so she could learn that the sound apple mapped to the physical object of an apple.
Yes. She could memorize nouns and verbs without too much trouble.
So the window for learning raw vocabulary, simply mapping symbols to objects, was apparently still open.
But she never grasped syntax.
Really? Never?
Never. She never acquired the ability to use grammar. She could not string those memorized words together into meaningful, syntactically correct sentences using function words, prepositions, or tense markers.
Wow. So her communication just remained fragmented.
Yes, just telegraphic strings of vocabulary. And this provided massive support for the idea that while the brain retains the ability to memorize lexical items, the specific biological window for computing grammar had permanently closed.
But then you compare Jeannie's trajectory to Isabel's.
Right. Isabel's circumstances were horrifyingly similar. She was incarcerated in a dark room with her deaf mother, completely isolated from spoken language.
However, the crucial variable here was time.
Yes. Isabel was discovered and rescued at age 6.5.
Okay, so she was still deep inside the critical period window. The neuroplasticity was still high.
And when Isabel was placed into a systematic training program, The difference was just staggering.
Unlike Jeannie, who plateaued early.
Right. Isabel rapidly progressed through the typical stages of language acquisition. Within a matter of months, she was producing complex, grammatically correct sentences.
Because her brain was still plastic enough to build that foundational architecture from scratch.
Exactly. It's heartbreaking to study, but it proves the biological constraint of lateralization so clearly.
However, your sources also detail cases that aren't just about deprivation, but about the brain actively fighting back against bad input.
Yes, the story of Simon is absolutely fascinating.
Tell me about Simon.
Simon's case was documented by Singleton and Newport, and it's a brilliant piece of evidence regarding the resilience of the language acquisition device when it operates within the critical period.
Simon was a deaf child, correct?
Yes, and his parents were also deaf. However, his parents had only learned American Sign Language, ASL, much later in their own lives.
Well past their own critical periods.
Exactly. Because they learned it late, their mastery of ASL was highly flawed. They used incorrect morphological rules, they were inconsistent with their spatial grammar, they dropped markers.
So they were providing highly degraded, messy linguistic input to their child.
And crucially, because of their living situation, they were essentially the sole source of language for Simon.
He wasn't getting corrected by a broader native signing community.
Right. So if we go back to Skinner and the behaviorists for a second.
Simon should have perfectly copied his parents' broken ASL.
Yes. He should have internalized their mistakes as the standard, but he didn't.
Because Simon was a child, his neuroplasticity was at its peak.
His brain took this broken, inconsistent input, analyzed it, and naturally filtered out his parents' errors.
That's amazing. He just constructed a perfectly organized, highly logical, grammatically flawless linguistic system on his own.
For instance, in ASL, verbs have these complex spatial agreements based on the location of objects. His parents constantly mess this up.
But Simon naturally systematized it and used the spatial verbs flawlessly.
His brain demanded grammatical order where the environment provided chaos.
It is a stunning demonstration of emergentism and those internal computational drives.
His brain was biologically mandated to build a systematic grammar, abstracting the rules even when the input was unreliable.
And this drive to compute, to structure, and to communicate complex mental states really highlights something profoundly unique about the human species.
Which brings us to the animal studies.
Right, because scientists have spent decades trying to teach human language to chimpanzees, like the famous Nim Chimpsky or Washoe the chimp.
The animal studies are great because they really clarify the boundary of human cognition. Chimpanzees can absolutely learn signs.
They can learn tokens, they have excellent associative memories.
But they never cross the threshold into true syntax. They do not combine signs to create novel, structurally dependent sentences.
The linguist Herbert Terrace, who led the Nim Chimpsky research, eventually realized a crucial flaw in the chimpanzee's communication.
What did he notice?
Nim was only signing because he wanted a physical, tangible reward. He was essentially a very advanced operant conditioning subject.
He would sign "give banana" because he wanted the banana.
Exactly. The motivation was entirely instrumental and physical. Humans, conversely, are uniquely driven by an innate desire for joint attention.
We have a deeper intrinsic motivation to share complex mental states.
A human toddler doesn't just point at a dog to get the dog. They point at the dog and look back at you because they want to ensure you are both experiencing the concept of the dog together.
Chimps do not do this.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because if everything we just discussed is true,
if the biological window for grammar and native-like pronunciation strictly closes around puberty.
Right. If the neural highways are cemented, what does that mean for adult learners?
That is the million-dollar question.
If you are a 30-year-old trying to learn Japanese or a 50-year-old trying to learn Italian, are you just biologically doomed? Do adult learners simply lack the raw talent for language that children possess?
That perceived lack of talent is the source of endless frustration. If we accept that the neuromuscular plasticity for perfect accent acquisition declines, it forces us to look at the hard science of individual variation among adults.
Because some adults still learn so much faster than others.
Exactly. And this brings us to the intersection of genetics and working memory.
Let's delve into the genetics of talent, because your sources do not shy away from the biological reality that some people are simply born with an advantage.
The research points to actual identifiable genes dictating language proficiency.
Wow, like specific genes.
Yes. Two prominent genes discussed in the literature are FOXP2 and ROBO1.
FOXP2, I think I've heard of that one.
It gained fame because severe mutations in this gene cause profound verbal dyspraxia. That's a drastic inability to coordinate the complex neuromuscular movements required for speech.
But ROBO1 is far more relevant to the average language learner, isn't it?
It is. Variations in the ROBO1 gene are strongly associated with the functional integrity of something called the phonological buffer.
I really want to break down this concept of the phonological buffer because I love the analogy here.
Let's hear it.
Imagine the phonological buffer as an audio clipboard in your brain's short-term memory system.
Okay, an audio clipboard.
When you hear a native speaker utter a fast, complex sentence in a foreign language, those raw sounds are temporarily stored on this audio clipboard.
And your brain then races to process those sounds, analyze the syllable boundaries, and map them to meanings.
Right, so a high-capacity phonological buffer driven by genetic advantages like ROBO1 means your clipboard holds onto those high-fidelity sounds much longer before they fade into static.
And that larger clipboard capacity allows the learner to hear a complex string of foreign syllables, retain the exact acoustic signature, and repeat them back with high accuracy.
And someone with a smaller genetic board capacity hears the same sentence, but the sounds degrade before their working memory can process the pattern,
leading to slower acquisition and poorer pronunciation.
The sources go even further into the biological determinism here. They note that inherited general intelligence accounts for roughly 60% of the variation in IQ among adults.
And this raw processing power directly impacts spatiomotor skills, writing fluency, and the ability to consciously manipulate complex grammar rules.
It creates an undeniable baseline of cognitive efficiency.
It really does.
Honestly, looking at this data, I feel a strong urge to push back.
Why is that?
Because as someone who loves the idea of lifelong learning, this feels incredibly defeating.
I can understand that.
If 60% of the variation in processing power is just inherited intelligence, and I wasn't lucky enough to inherit the ROBO1 gene for a massive audio clipboard.
And your critical neuroplastic window slammed shut 15 years ago.
Exactly. Then what is the point? If the biology is so heavily stacked against us, why are millions of adults spending time and money on language apps and tutoring? Are we just fighting a losing battle against our own DNA?
The data on genetics is real, but drawing a defeatist conclusion from it is a profound misinterpretation of how adult learning actually functions.
Okay, good, because I was getting worried.
While genetics and age define the baseline parameters of the hardware, they absolutely do not dictate the final outcome of the learner.
So what does?
In fact, when researchers analyze highly successful adult language learners, the focus shifts dramatically away from pure biological determinism and heavily toward the overwhelming transformative impact of sociocultural factors and psychological drive.
Sociocultural factors, meaning your external environment and your internal motivation can actually override your genetic baseline.
Precisely. Let's examine two foundational models from the research: Robert Gardner's socioeducational model and John Schumann's acculturation model.
Okay.
Both of these frameworks introduce critical metrics known as social distance and psychological distance.
Let's define the mechanisms behind those distances. What is social distance?
Social distance measures the degree to which an individual learner is integrated, or desperately desires to be integrated, with the target language community.
Are you isolated from them, or are you immersed among them?
Exactly. And psychological distance measures your internal comfort level, your anxiety, and your emotional orientation toward the learning process itself.
So how does this override biology?
Gardner heavily emphasized that possessing deep, intrinsic, integrative motivation, the profound desire to become a functioning, accepted member of the target culture, acts as a massive cognitive amplifier.
Okay, let me try an example. If I am a college student taking a mandatory French credit just to graduate, my motivation is purely instrumental. I just want the grade.
Your psychological distance is massive because you don't truly care about the language.
Right, and my social distance is huge because I don't interact with any French people. So the biological barriers remain high.
Yes, but consider an alternative scenario.
Okay, what if I fall in love with someone from Paris and I move to France, and I desperately want to communicate with their grandparents and be accepted into their social circle?
In that case, your motivation becomes highly integrative. Your social and psychological distances shrink to near zero.
And my brain responds biologically to that urgent social necessity.
It does. Maintaining and building new neural pathways in adulthood requires significant metabolic energy. If the brain perceives the language merely as an abstract puzzle, it won't allocate the resources.
But if the brain perceives the language as a vital tool for social survival, belonging, and identity formation,
It prioritizes the metabolic energy to force adaptation, overriding the friction of an older, lateralized brain.
that is fascinating. And that ties directly into what the sources say about the role of personality, which I found so interesting. We always assume that highly extroverted people are naturally better language learners.
It is the most common stereotype for sure, but the empirical reality is far more balanced. Extroversion and introversion simply dictate different pathways to success.
How so?
Well, extroverts absolutely have an advantage in lowering their social distance. They actively seek out interactions. They are far more tolerant of ambiguity.
And they're willing to make massive, embarrassing mistakes in public just to keep a conversation flowing.
Exactly. This guarantees them a massive volume of raw input and speaking practice.
They get the physical reps in. They're throwing themselves into the deep end of the pool. But what about the introverts?
Introverts possess highly distinct cognitive advantages. The research demonstrates that introverts often excel at deploying systematic, highly effective learning strategies.
Because they might be hesitant to speak immediately.
Right. Because they hesitate, they spend more time in the active listening phase, they process the input deeply, meticulously noticing subtle morphological rules and grammatical structures.
So the extrovert is out at the local market, boldly speaking fragmented, grammatically incorrect Spanish with 5 different vendors, maximizing their social interaction.
Yes.
Meanwhile, the introvert is at home, quietly consuming Spanish literature and podcasts, internalizing the exact mechanical structure of the subjunctive tense.
And when the introvert finally does speak, their output is often far more accurate and complex.
Both are successfully acquiring the language, but utilizing entirely different neurological strengths based on their personality profile.
This raises an important question regarding our modern approach to learning, actually.
What's that?
If intrinsic motivations, social integration, and communicative necessity are the primary drivers that allow adults to overcome biological aging, are adult learners failing because their brains are too old? Or are they failing because sitting alone in a room, swiping a screen on a gamified language app, completely strips away the rich, urgent, social survival context that language evolved to serve?
Wow. That cuts right to the bone of the issue. We evolved human language to coordinate hunts, build societies, and prevent ourselves from being exiled from the tribe.
Exactly.
If you remove the tribe, you are trying to activate a biological survival mechanism without any of the survival pressure. The brain just says, why bother?
Precisely. You are trying to start the engine without providing any fuel.
So what does this all mean? We understand the biology, we acknowledge the critical period of lateralization, and we recognize that intense motivation and social necessity can hack our brain's limitations.
So we need practical steps.
Exactly. How do we practically, actively apply this to our daily lives to learn faster? Let's get into the actionable, science-backed methods that anyone listening can use today.
The most powerful practical application comes from the work of developmental psychologist Lev Vyepsky. Specifically, his concept of the zone of proximal development, or the ZPD.
The ZPD sounds incredibly theoretical, but the mechanics of it are entirely practical. Let's break it down.
Vygotsky's sociocultural theory posits that learning is fundamentally a socially mediated process. The zone of proximal development is defined as the specific cognitive space between what a learner can achieve independently and what they can achieve when guided by a more knowledgeable partner.
So, to acquire a language rapidly, Vygotsky argued you must intentionally operate within this zone.
Yes.
Because if I sit alone in my room talking to myself in German, I am operating below the zone. I'm just entrenching my own errors because no one is challenging me.
Correct.
Conversely, if I drop myself into an advanced university lecture on German philosophy, I am operating way above my zone. I understand nothing, my brain gets overwhelmed by the acoustic noise, and I tune out. So the ZPD is that precise sweet spot where I am slightly over my head, stretching my capabilities, but I have a native-speaking tutor or friend providing an anchor.
The crucial mechanism operating inside the ZPD is what the literature calls corrective feedback, specifically prompts and recasts.
Explain the difference and why recasts are so effective.
Well, explicit correction is when someone stops you and says, no, that's the wrong verb conjugation, use this one.
Which kind of breaks the social flow, right? It raises psychological anxiety.
Exactly. A recast is far more elegant. When you make a grammatical error, the advanced speaker naturally repeats your sentence back to you, seamlessly substituting the correct form, maintaining the conversational momentum.
So if I'm practicing English and I say to you, yesterday I run to the store to buy milk, you don't pull out a grammar textbook.
No, I just respond naturally and say, oh, you ran to the store. What kind of milk did you get?
Ah, so you have provided the correct acoustic input, ran, immediately after my error, within a meaningful social context.
Exactly. This gentle juxtaposition forces your brain's pattern recognition software to notice the gap between your interlanguage output and the target language reality.
And it does this without triggering the effective filter of embarrassment.
Exactly.
You mentioned interlanguage, which brings up a huge trap waiting for adult learners. The concept of cross-linguistic influence or language transfer.
This is a major factor.
We assume we're just pouring new vocabulary into our existing brain. But our native first language is constantly, secretly sabotaging and sometimes assisting the new language.
It alters the cognitive processing completely. You are not simply learning a broken version of the target language.
The text gives an incredibly illustrative study involving Czech speakers learning English regarding a phenomenon called number agreement attraction.
That's a great example.
Let's walk through the mechanics of this because it blew my mind.
So number agreement attraction is a processing error that native speakers occasionally make when their working memory is overloaded by complex syntax.
Right. In English, we have basic number agreement. Singular subject, singular verb. The dog runs. Plural subject, plural verb. The dogs run.
Simple enough.
But if we create a complex sentence where a plural noun is physically placed right next to a singular verb, the brain gets confused. The key to the cabinets are missing. Native English speakers will often accidentally say are because the plural word cabinets exerts an attraction force on the verb, even though the actual subject of the sentence is the singular word key.
Our working memory drops the ball.
Right. It is an illusion of plurality.
Now, crucially, the grammar of the Czech language is structured differently. The native Czech processing system does not fall victim to this specific type of number agreement attraction.
So logically, you would assume that if a native Czech speaker is learning English, they would have an advantage here.
You would think so.
Because their brain isn't wired to make that specific mistake, they should be immune to it in English. But the study detailed in the research revealed the exact opposite.
It did. Advanced Czech speakers learning English still exhibit this exact same working memory failure in English.
Which demonstrates a profound neurological reality. When you learn a second language as an adult, you're not just pasting English words onto Czech grammar rules.
The heavy cognitive load of processing a second language forces the brain to construct a totally unique, hybrid linguistic architecture in your mind. This is your interlanguage.
The interlanguage is its own beast. It is susceptible to entirely new processing errors and working memory overloads that don't even exist in your mother tongue.
Exactly.
And because maintaining this new interlanguage architecture requires immense metabolic energy, we have to talk about the terrifying principle of use it or lose it.
The science of attrition.
Yes.
Attrition. Attrition is driven by what we can call the exercise hypothesis. The human brain is a metabolically expensive organ. Building and maintaining complex neural networks for a second language consumes significant resources.
So if you spend years building those pathways, but then you alter your environment and stop using the language,
the brain registers an inefficiency. It evaluates those neural connections, determines they are wasting metabolic calories, and systematically begins to dismantle them.
it literally unpaves the highways to save energy.
It really does.
But the fascinating part is the sequence of the destruction.
Mm.
The research states that attrition happens in the exact reverse order of acquisition. We lose our skills backward.
Yes.
Why does the brain choose to dismantle it in that specific order?
It comes down to the cognitive load required for different tasks. Producing output speaking and writing requires intense, active metabolic effort.
Because you have to retrieve the vocabulary from long-term memory, coordinate the complex neuromuscular motor plans for the mouth, and actively apply abstract syntactic rules in real time.
Receptive skills, on the other hand, listening and reading, rely on passive recognition networks, which are metabolically much cheaper to maintain.
That makes perfect sense. So when a baby learns a language, they build the cheaper recognition networks first. They can understand what you say long before they can physically produce the speech.
Therefore, when attrition sets in, the brain cuts the most expensive programs first. You lose your productive skills. The ability to recall words and physically speak vanishes.
But your receptive skills, your ability to comprehend spoken input hang on significantly longer because they cost the brain less energy to preserve. This explains an incredibly common phenomenon. You always hear adults say, I studied Spanish for 5 years in high school. I can't speak a single sentence today, but if I overhear two people talking at a restaurant, I can still generally understand what they're saying.
That is attrition happening in real time. The brain uninstalled the high-cost speaking software but kept the low-cost listening software running in the background.
So if you want to keep the language, you have to force your brain to expend the energy on output.
Exactly.
Let's move to a final, highly actionable mechanism for adult learners: leveraging statistical learning. We noted earlier that infants use statistical learning to decode language.
Yes, they sit in their cribs surrounded by a continuous, unbroken wash of sound.
To a baby, a sentence isn't composed of separate words. It's just a long stream of acoustic data. They have no idea where one word ends and the next begins.
But their brains are running a complex background algorithm, meticulously tracking the statistical probability of certain syllables appearing sequentially.
So if the syllable pre is followed by the syllable dd 90% of the time, the brain calculates a high probability that pretty is a bounded unit of word.
They deduce the boundaries through raw exposure, and the critical insight for adults is that we do not lose this pattern recognition software.
We still have it.
Yes. To acquire a language efficiently, adults must deliberately maximize their raw, unstructured auditory input. You must bathe your brain in the acoustic stream of the language.
Even if you don't consciously comprehend the vocabulary yet.
Even then, it allows those subconscious statistical models to calibrate to the new phonetic frequencies.
But there is a massive caveat to this, highlighted by a brand new 2025 study by Kludkova and colleagues regarding the interaction between prosody and orthography.
Yes, this study challenges a very common adult learning strategy.
Right. So prosody refers to the musicality of the language, the rhythm, the intonation, the stress patterns of the spoken syllables.
And orthography is the written text, the letters on the page.
For years, my absolute go-to strategy was to watch foreign films with the foreign language subtitles turned on. I figured if I can read the text while I hear the dialogue, I'm getting double the input. I'm connecting the sound to the spelling instantly.
It seems highly logical, engaging multiple sensory streams simultaneously. But the 2025 study discovered a severe interference effect.
What did they find?
They found that introducing written text orthography too early in the learning process can significantly hamper an adult learner's ability to accurately perceive and acquire the musical prosody of the new language.
Let's explain the mechanism of why reading ruins listening. If I am a native English speaker trying to learn French, my brain has spent decades hardwiring strict pronunciation rules to the Latin alphabet. When I look at a French word written on the screen, my visual cortex processes those letters and instantly, forcefully applies my deeply ingrained English phonetic rules to them.
This top-down visual processing is so dominant that it literally overrides the bottom-up auditory processing. The text hijacks your ears.
Your established orthographic mappings act as a cognitive filter, distorting the raw acoustic data before your statistical learning software can properly analyze it.
You end up hearing what you think you should hear based on the letters, rather than hearing the actual rhythm and prosody of the native speaker.
So, the actionable takeaway here is profound. Sometimes, to effectively learn a new language, adults have to deliberately blind themselves to their old habits.
We have to resist the urge to rely on text as a crutch.
We have to learn to hear the music of the language purely as sound before we ever look at how it's spelled.
Absolutely.
Okay, we have covered an absolutely massive amount of scientific ground today. We have traveled from the tragic isolation of feral children to the molecular genetics of working memory and the cognitive traps of reading subtitles.
It's been quite the journey.
Let's recap it. We are undeniably genetically primed for language. The biological hardware exists. But it is our intense social environment that must flip the switch to boot up the software.
Right.
While children clearly possess a fleeting neuroplastic advantage, that unpaved jungle, allowing them to effortlessly soak up native pronunciation and syntax before puberty, adult learners are far from helpless.
Far from it. Adults possess advanced executive function, superior strategic cognition, the capacity for profound, identity-altering motivation, and the conscious ability to deliberately place themselves into the zone of proximal development. If we connect all of these distinct threads to the bigger picture, it becomes clear that human language is not merely a utility.
It is not just a biological tool we evolved for asking where the nearest water source is.
Language is the fundamental architecture of human socialization. It is how we connect, how we empathize, and how we delineate our in-groups from our out-groups.
When you commit to learning a second language, you are not simply memorizing a new dictionary of terms. You are actively adopting a new operational framework for navigating human relationships.
Exactly.
And that perspective leads me to a final, slightly provocative thought to leave you with, based on the linguist Vivian Cook's concept of multi-competence.
Multi-competence.
Research demonstrates that the moment you begin intensely acquiring a second language, the way you cognitively process and physically pronounce your first language fundamentally and permanently alters in your brain.
That's incredible.
For instance, native French speakers who achieve advanced fluency in English actually begin pronouncing the letter T in their native French slightly differently. The phonetic boundaries shift.
It changes everything.
Your brain does not just cleanly add a second language into a separate, isolated box on the shelf. The two linguistic systems merge, compete, and irreversibly alter one another, creating a new, hybridized cognitive state.
Wow.
So if the specific language we speak intricately shapes how we express our thoughts, our emotions, and our very identity, and acquiring a new language literally, physically rewires the neural pathways of your mother tongue. Who are you becoming when you start studying a new language? And are you ever truly the same person you were before you started?
That is a fascinating question.
The cognitive models may not be able to give us a perfectly clean binary picture of where language lives in the brain. The data might remain complex. But perhaps that is because human language isn't a static structure that sets in stone. It's a living current that constantly reshapes the very riverbed it flows through. Keep exploring those currents.